Hey guys, it's Lohpally here with another video, and today we're going to be going over kind of a guide on one of my new favorite characters to play a lot. I've seen a lot of resurgence of him for me personally playing, and that is going to be Maokai. Now, the reason why I've been playing a lot of Maokai support, and kind of what makes it good, is going to be in this guide. We're going to be going over, how to team fight, how to play this character in general, what runes I've been setting up, etc. So let's just jump right into it. So for starters, what makes Maokai support a good support? Why have I been picking him? Why have I been playing him? And what makes him successful in the game? Well, for the most part, it's really just a simple thing, which is his saplings. The reason why I really like Maokai support right now is just because of the fact that he allows you to get control of space super well. In League of Legends right now, there's a lot of team fighting. You have long games, you fight over dragons and Dragon Soul, and this character really primes dragon fights well. So the reason why I've been playing him the most, and really at his peak power level, is if you have good fundamentals and you can get to that neutral objective beforehand, set up tons of saplings, it becomes really easy for you to secure those dragons. So this is why I found that this character is really potent, really powerful, and tons of fun to play since he does a ton of damage.
Warning, warning, warning.
So without further ado, let's jump into our rune setups. Now, a lot of people would mostly ask, okay, if you're going AP Maokai support, then you're probably taking Comet quite frequently. But the answer to that question is no. I'm not really taking Comet that often, even at all, actually. And the reason behind that is a lot of times when I take Comet, I find myself Wing into people and just dying instantly. You're a tank support in terms of going in, snaring, and CCing people, and yet you're building full AP, so it kind of makes you really squishy. So preferred rune setup is going to actually be Aftershock. I take this about 70 to 80 to even maybe 90% of my games right now, and I found that it's just much better because then if I isolate a target and I can jump in on them, I don't die instantly afterwards, and I have ways and wiggle room to get out of there afterwards. So it kind of unlocks your character to actually play a bit more aggressively. It lets you 2v2 a lot easier. And I found that the Comet damage, it's not bad, but it's unnecessary. Because usually if they're getting hit by your saplings anyway, and you're building AP damage, you're going to do enough damage that the Comet and the Scorch, not really necessary a lot of the times. So for our rune setups, we're going to be taking Aftershock. And then afterwards, we're going to be taking Font of Life in most cases, just because, you're slowing and CCing, so you want that extra healing going on in the fights. Plus, you're usually not in the scenario where you can get demolished procs off most of the time. After that, we're going to be taking Conditioning, just so that we can really scale in and be as tanky as possible without having to build any tank items. And then Overgrowth. Kind of, you can see thematically, we're getting a lot of runes that make us a lot more durable and tanky, so that if we're going in CCing people, we're not going to blow up instantly and we can get out. This also allows you to kind of have some pseudo frontline effects in most team fights. After that, the secondary is just going to be Mana Flow and Transcendence. I find that you're on the map pretty frequently and you want to be throwing out saplings over and over again. Mana Flow helps solve a lot of mana problems in combination with the Spell Thief, so I'm a big fan of it. And then on top of that, Transcendence allows you to just throw more saplings out. And that is a really critical part of this character, is just making sure you have enough ability haste that you can constantly litter the map with as many saplings as possible, so that it's a real nightmare for enemy players to get in. So, without further ado, itemization, right? A lot of people always ask me, okay, what are you building on this character? Now, I've done kind of two builds, and I want to share my experiences with both, and when you can go for each of them. So, first off, we're going to be going the Acidity Boots pretty much always. And the reason for this is that I value the frequency in which you can put saplings down over how much damage they deal. They usually do so much damage to enemy players that it's kind of fine that your saplings are doing a little less damage and not having that sorcerer pen. And this is like a personal preference, because I prefer to have lots of saplings in a lot of areas, just because usually if someone gets hit by a sapling, regardless of how much damage they deal, they tend to give ground, and you want to have that ability haste to continuously cycle them. Plus, also, Lucidity Boots are really great because I would say that a lot of the strength of this character, especially in the early stages, is through your flash. Your playmaking through flash is really important, because your W is just a short range. It's kind of hard to get on top of people. And we'll be going into this a little bit more in laning phase, but flash is a critical part of this character because it allows you to instantly snap, engage, and punish people that are mispositioning, or people that just run over too many saplings in a lot of ways. So after that, we kind of deviate between two builds. So you can go either Mandate or Liandry's. Now, I've been actually gravitating more towards Liandry's recently, and the reason for that is it gives more kick to your actual ease. Your saplings are going to actually do a lot more damage to enemy players, and it's less dependent on your teammates. So I think that in most cases, especially in solo queue, this build is a little bit better just because of the fact that you don't need your teammates to be proccing the mandate proc, and it gives you a lot more damage on your saplings. Now, one drawback to this build, obviously, is that it's a bit more expensive, right? You're not going to be able to get it nearly as early, so you need to kind of go with the flow in terms of, hey, is my game going well or is my game going poorly? Usually, if your game is going pretty well, then what you can do is you can opt into the Leandries pretty early, try and get these as soon as possible, and then you can move into things like Demonic is a big one that I love to build afterwards. But in scenarios where maybe you've died a couple times in lane, maybe you're just struggling and don't have a lot of income, or maybe it's just a lot of fighting that's going on, or you need a bit more tanky stats, or if you're playing in a scenario where a lot of your teammates are interacting and fighting with you, then Mandate is a completely fine build to do. Just know that your saplings themselves will do a little bit less damage, but you'll do about equal team fight damage when you start fighting and landing your snares, etc., and on isolated targets. That's kind of the differentiation between that. But for second items, I'm a real big fan of Demonic pretty much always. And the reason for this is that HP increases the duration at which the saplings stay on the map. So it means that in turn, it actually converts into ability haste in a lot of ways because your just saplings are sitting there for longer periods of time. Plus, the extra burn damage is really, really great since you're considered a melee character. You get the full burn damage, and the extra HP doesn't hurt for most cases. So usually this is my second item pretty much always in most of the games. And then third and fourth are going to be kind of just dependent on what you feel like you need. I'm a big fan of Cosmic Drive still, because I just, as you can kind of see thematically from the Lucidity boots, am a big fan of having as much ability haste as possible so that I can throw as many saplings down and control as much space as I want. Ability haste is really like the premium stat, since you want to make sure that your saplings are just being able to cycle the whole time, and so you can get control of all of the brushes, especially on maps like the Ocean Soul. It's really tough to not have a sapling in every brush unless you have enough ability haste in this sense. After that, you can go things like Void Staff. Shadow Flame is also an acceptable item too if you're looking for some burn damage. These are all great items. Usually games don't last past my second item, so I'm not usually as concerned about it. But yeah, Cosmic Drive and Void Staff, definitely a good third and fourth item. Shadow Flame's not bad either if you're not nearly as interested in the ability haste, or you decide to go Sorcerer's Shoes instead. And you can do this even if you go Mandate as the first item. The Mythic is really the only deviation, I feel like, when it comes to your build path, so you're just choosing between whether or not you want to get your Mythic or not for Leandries versus Mandate. First off, one of the greatest weaknesses of this character is its laning phase. So most of the laning phase, kind of to softly break it down, is that you're going to kind of just chill, especially in the first couple of levels. So really all you want to make sure that you're doing is throwing your saplings on enemy players as best you can and trying to control brushes with saplings, and just try to cycle your mana flow. You want to make sure that you're getting your mana flow stacks, you're making some spell thieves, you're just kind of chilling until level 3. Now, once you hit level 3, what you're mostly looking for is Flash Snare. It's pretty hard for you to walk up and actually snare players unless they're playing really disrespectfully, so you're usually going to need your Flash. So this is kind of where the character's power is, but also locked behind. So if your jungler is ever coming to gank, Flash Snaring, really great way, and then queuing them towards your teammate is really great way to do it. I've also encountered a lot of times in laning phases, people disrespect Maokai a lot in terms of his flash. So they'll push you into the turret because you know you're playing defensively. So don't be afraid to Flash Snare and push them in onto the turret if there are very few minions left and they're sieging your turret. These are great options and opportunities for you to kind of create pressure in the lane. And usually when your flash is down, you're kind of just chilling again and just making sure that you're throwing saplings, especially when you have mana flow up, and just making sure they hit the players. Don't worry too much about the damage or if it's in the brush. Just make sure that you're making money and getting that mana flow ticking in. After that, kind of going to the thematic, what makes this character really good is you need to make sure that you're fighting for dragons. And the best way to do that is, I kind of call it the rule of 130. Try to make sure you're recalling about 1:30 before dragon. That way you can get back on the map and throw saplings and wards all around the dragon. Usually if you get enough sapling damage on people, they'll usually walk away and not even contest the dragon pretty frequently. And the beauty of this character too is even if your teammates aren't helping you get vision down, your saplings get that for you. So you can actually clear a lot of space very easily just by throwing saplings as you're moving around into those brushes. And this is why I also like Lucidity Boots, because it allows me to check brushes without feeling like, oh, I'm committing a big cooldown to that brush, and I can't control the space. Outside of that, there's really two main components, which is if your teammates engage or the enemy players engage, just use R immediately. It doesn't matter if it hits the players or not. Just having that ultimate following up or blocking out those engages will be really, really great. Outside of that, you kind of want to pay attention to your flash cooldown and make sure that you're flashing on characters if they're out of position. They're really important people to kill. Make sure that you're doing the combo right, which is you're going to flash W, you're going to Q, and then R. So then your ulti is hitting, behind them so they don't really have a great way to get out, and your Q is kind of stunning them and CCing them afterwards. Outside of that, it's really just saplings. Everything is sapling oriented. So if you're ever having skirmishes in the early stages, or you're just having big team fights, try to always actively look, hey, is there a brush nearby? And throw your saplings into those locations and kite towards them. Bring the enemy players into these so that you can score kills and poke them out and just do a lot of damage to them in the sense. So fight in jungles as frequently as possible. Try to be there for those dragons. And this character will feel really, really good if you are meeting those conditions well. Just make sure you have like a reasonably stable laning phase and get there for those dragons. Those saplings will do tons of damage. You don't really even need that many items. Just the Leandries, I already feel like I'm doing a ton of damage, and it's pretty common for me to end games with the most damage in the entire game just because I'm setting up saplings early on, and I am just making it miserable for the enemy players to come in and fight. Also, another thing to note too is if you are controlling brushes, try not to make too much of a habit of stacking too many saplings at once, because if they both collide with players, it only ticks in for one of the pieces of damage outside of the instant damage that comes out. So you want to make sure that like all the brushes are covered before you're kind of stacking a lot of the time. Otherwise, you'll miss out on a lot of damage in that sense. Anyway, that pretty much breaks down kind of why I've been liking Maokai support, how to play Maokai support, and kind of the setups that we're using for it. Hopefully you found this guide helpful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment in the section below, and hit that bell and whistle. And you know what? In the comments, tell me, hey, have you played Maokai support? Is this character for you? Or is this character just terrible and you can't make it work at all? Love to hear your experiences. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Peace.